These five stars are currently still deciding where they want to play their college ball. Maybe they know. We don't know yet, though. Each of those guys will make an instant impact wherever they end up. So where might they be headed? Let's ask our director of recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. But first, before we get into all of that, we have to get an update here. Steve, you popped onto the show Thursday to let us know about Dante Moore's weekend visit to UCLA. It did happen. The photos of him in Bruins gear still haunting Oregon fans. How worried should they be about losing their prized quarterback?
Well, talking to folks at Detroit King and talking to other sources with knowledge of the recruitment earlier this week, I still think that Dante Moore sticks in Oregon's class. We'll see if he even visits Eugene this weekend. Obviously, UCLA has a lot to sell with the top five offense and Chip Kelly's history at the quarterback position. But I just think Oregon's and the way they've been able to recruit Dante from start to finish. Obviously, Kenny Dillingham was a big part of it, but Dan Lanning certainly involved and kept in touch with Dante every step of the way with the new offensive coordinator hire. They've been out to Detroit for him to meet him. And I still think as it stands right now, Oregon hangs on to Dante Moore as they push for a top 10 recruiting class.
Steve, we've said it on this show before that all is fair in love and recruiting. Oregon saw their top-rated commit visit another school. They were hosting a prospect that's committed to another school. That would be David Hicks. He's committed to Texas A&M. What's the latest on him after his visit to Eugene?
Well, and Dan Lanning's in there tonight, too, to try and keep that momentum rolling. I think that Hicks loves Oregon. Look, this was his second visit in a month to Oregon and his fourth trip overall. He went to their spring game, took his official in the summer, has now been there twice recently. It's obvious that the young man is extremely high on Oregon and is thinking strongly about playing for the Ducks. Now, he's committed to Texas A&M. The Aggies were his first offer. Jimbo Fisher will be in there Wednesday. He's going to be back in College Station this weekend. The opportunity to play close to home. His dad's the head football coach at Katy Paytow, and it's very convenient for him to play at home and for the family to go and see him play in games. And then certainly an opportunity to play in a defensive scheme that he likes around talented guys like Walter Nolan and Shamar Stewart. I think all that's attractive for A&M. Oklahoma's still punching here. Blair, Brent Venables, and Todd Bates and company, who he has a great relationship with, will be in home on Thursday. But I think A&M hangs on to him, but Oregon pushing hard here at the end. And I think that he's excited about a potential future in Eugene as well.
Okay, let's talk about those uncommitted players. The top uncommitted guy in 2023 is offensive lineman Samson Okunlola. He is set to announce on Thursday, so we won't have to wait too long. But Steve, he took an official to Florida this past weekend, but both you and Brian Doan have him crystal balled to Miami. So what's the latest?
That doesn't mean we're sleeping on Florida. He's taken 2 visits to the Gators in the last month, got a chance to watch them practice on his visit previous to this past weekend, which was his official visit, where he got more time around the staff, got a chance to get to know this Florida coaching staff even better, got a chance to see what they do for their athletes off the field, got a chance to be around some of their commits. And he likes the trajectory of the Florida program under Billy Napier and company. I think all that applies for Miami as well. I think the Hurricanes have been in great position since going back to the summer. You have Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal in home today, Blair. So you know that's going to be a juiced up in-home visit with a lot of energy and excitement. Samson and Francis Maigoa, those are 2 of the most coveted guys on Miami's board. You know how those guys love to recruit offensive line. I think that's a position of major need for them. Those are 2 guys that I think could be instant impact players on the next level. Miami needs it, and I think that they're I still like their position until someone tells me otherwise here down the stretch.
You talk about living room guys, especially down the stretch heading into signing day. Mario Cristobal, you can never bet against him closing and being a finisher close to the end of the recruiting cycle. Steve, Nyckoles Harbor took that official visit to Maryland this past weekend. What stood out to you? What stood out to him about his time there, and what's the latest in his recruitment as he approaches signing day?
Well, 2 weeks in a row, that he's been at Maryland. Went to a basketball game there 2 weeks ago. That was the family's first ever basketball game on the Terrapins campus. They love the energy and the environment there. Got a chance to spend time around Loxley and the staff. Then they come back this weekend for some more FaceTime with Mike Loxley and company. But also got a lot of FaceTime with the school president, the school athletic director. Nyckoles Harbor has aspirations of playing in the NFL. He has aspirations of running in the next Olympics. Then he has aspirations of being a surgeon. So what do? You bring in one of the best orthopedic surgeons in the company to hang out with Nyckoles Harbor as well. So Maryland laid out the red carpet for him. I think Michigan is another program that's an excellent position for him. Took an official visit in the fall to Michigan. I think Michigan checks a lot of boxes for Nyckoles Harbor and his family as well. South Carolina is certainly the third program in play for Nyckoles Harbor. I think he's super close with the Gamecock commits. He's built a great relationship with their staff, took an official visit to Columbia this fall as well. He and his family say that they're going to sign in February. He was thinking about taking an official visit to Georgia this weekend. That's not going to happen. So he'll have 2 official visits in play after the early signing period if he does not put pen to paper. I think some of these schools here are trying to push him to sign as well. Look, he's been to Maryland several times. He's been to Michigan several times. He's been to South Carolina several times. So we'll see what happens over the next 8 days, guys. But I like where Maryland's position. I like where Michigan's position. I'm not sleeping on the Gamecocks either.
All right. 5-star edge Matayo Uiagalelei is deciding between Ohio State, Oregon, and USC. He plans to announce on signing day next Wednesday, but his brother, you might have heard of him, DJ Uiagalelei, is also looking for a new spot after he hit the transfer portal. I don't know them personally, but I'm going to use their first names to differentiate. How much will DJ's decision play a role in Matayo's?
Look, and nobody closer to this recruitment than our colleague Greg Biggins out west, who's boots on the ground in Los Angeles, who's covered Matayo's game several times. And then Blair, I know you got ears to the ground on this one. From my perspective, I still think Ohio State is best positioned for Matayo here because I think he really believes in the player development that Ohio State has for their defensive linemen. And the family really reveres Larry Johnson and thinks that's the guy that could get Matayo, get all the potential out of him during his college experience. Now, with and Larry Johnson and Perry Eliano were both at Matayo State Championship game this past weekend. That being said, not sleeping on Oregon. I think that he's been to Ohio State this fall, also been back to Oregon this fall. Dan Lanning and his ability to help build up that Georgia defense into one of the nation's best, if not the nation's best, win a national championship. That pedigree is also exciting about Oregon. I think he's had great visits to Oregon and is also high on the Ducks. He attended USC's victory over Notre Dame. You can't rule out the Trojans, and those are the 3 schools best positioned. You got other schools like Georgia and Texas A&M swinging, and obviously Biggins and Blair and company will bring this one home on the 24/7 Sports Network, so you want to follow their coverage.
Yeah, Stephen, considering that Keon Keeley is headed to Bama, that heightens the importance for Ohio State to land Matayo Uiagalelei. Shifting gears to linebacker, the number 1 player in this 2023 class, 5-star Anthony Hill from the state of Texas, still uncommitted, surprisingly in a way, after he bounced from that commitment to A&M. What's the latest on Anthony Hill and Texas?
Well, I think that's the team to beat. I think that Texas A&M has been trying to stay afloat in that recruitment since he reopened the process and decommitted from the Aggies earlier this fall. But I love Texas's position for Anthony Hill. Steve Sarkisian and his staffers will be in there on Thursday. He's going to announce his commitment on December 21st. And as Texas tries to build their defense into one that can compete with the powerhouse programs in the SEC, I love the way that they recruited the front 7 in the 2022 cycle, going into places like Alabama and Mississippi and beating SEC programs, top SEC programs for the best defensive players in the state. To keep Anthony Hill home would be massive. To beat the Aggies, to beat Oklahoma for this hard-hitting second-level defender that can bring you a pass-rushing presence, that would be huge for them as they continue to try and rebuild things in what will be year 3 for Steve Sarkisian and company.
Meanwhile, a very exciting 5-star uncommitted prospect, Duce Robinson, has got some crystal balls in favor of USC, but he's also considering Alabama, Texas, Georgia. He's not expected to sign until February. So where do things stand now with his recruitment?
Well, I feel weird answering this question with Blair Angulo sitting
I know,
right there
he's
on
one
the
of the
set.
crystal
Nobody
balls.
has more information than Blair there. But for me and my intel, I think that Georgia is the program to beat right now for Duce Robinson. I think that Texas is a program that he's also very intrigued with, as you guys talked about at the top of the show. Arch Manning personally recruiting him, and I talked to Arch yesterday. I think that means a lot to Duce, and those 2 guys have really hit it off for a lot of this recruiting cycle, and an opportunity to play with Arch Manning at Texas is major. USC, the early team to beat, in our opinion, for Duce, still hanging around in that recruitment. Alabama, Oregon, Louisville, some of the others he's shown interest in. This is a young man that wants to not only play in the NFL, he also wants to play Major League Baseball. And do it at the same time, I believe. And I think he sees the player development of the tight end at Georgia, and I think that really excites him. I think, and Blair maybe correct me if I'm wrong, this recruitment goes to February because this is a young man that I think wants to see what happens with the coach carousel and maybe where assistant coaches move around before he makes up his mind and puts pen to paper. And he's a young man that these schools will wait on. Not everybody can wait till February. Spots can evaporate. But Duce Robinson, he could wait past February if people have a spot for him.
He is worth waiting for, as we say. Steve, we're a team here. We can all work together. I know you have your sources and Blair has his sources, but I'm going to go ahead and ask Blair a question while we've got him here. I mean, how sure are we that Duce Robinson even plays college football? We know about the interest in baseball. Could he just play baseball?
Yeah, I spoke to a source this past weekend that mentioned that baseball is still secondary to this, right? Football is still driving his recruitment. And I think he's looking at all the things, all the variables on the table. He has to consider the MLB draft, which is rumored to be looking at him, right? I think a lot of teams in Major League Baseball have been scouting him for a number of years now. But I think he understands his value as a dual sport athlete. He wants to play both for as long as he can. And I don't think he has a favorite sport. I think he wants to continue to do both. It's what he's done for his entire life. You brought up an interesting point, Steve, about the leverage that he has, right? Everyone's going to wait for Duce Robinson. All those schools, all those finalists are going to wait. And obviously any school can sign as many players as they want now, as long as they stay under that 85 limit. So I think Duce Robinson knows that. He's going to take his time. It sounds like he will be going into February. He wants to play baseball this spring and see what happens with the draft, see what happens with the coaching carousel. A lot of different variables. It's one of the more interesting and fascinating recruitments in this 2023 recruiting cycle.
I think the family knows they're guaranteed to play at least minor league baseball. So like you said, it's finding the best development to get him to the NFL, in addition to baseball, where he is going to get an opportunity to be a pro in some capacity, most likely. And then he can create his own road from the minor leagues up to the big show.